Okay, I'm going to attempt to do a brief discussion of the three Frost poems that appear on the test. The discussion of Mendingwall will probably need to be longer since that's what you have to write an essay about. Um, but I'm going to start with Mendingwall because I just put the poems in Canvas. All students should be able to see the poems. It says, hold on, let me check and see what I labeled it. Um, Frost poems. And you should be able to either click on a link and go to it that way, or actually look at the poems themselves pasted into the assignment. The assignment's 0 points, which just means I want you to read the poems. However, I will, as I've done in the past, include some kind of a quiz or something that is not a major grade, but a way to check and make sure that you're watching the video and thinking about some of the issues that I'm about to go over. I have mentioned to some classes and want everybody to understand there's no one right way to read a poem. This is kind of why I started the semester with Billy Collins's Introduction to Poetry. But when you look at a poem and start to make an interpretation, do remember that the things that I will grade for are your ability to show why your claims matter, why somebody who's not already in agreement with you should take you seriously and find your position reasonable. So why your claims matter and why they're true. And that's doing analysis. You need to do a combination of analysis and providing evidence, which is in this case just directly quoting or summarizing from the poems. But don't assume that conclusions that are apparent to you will be equally obvious to a reader. I want you to assume that the person that you're trying to convince of your interpretation actually disagrees with you. So let's start with Mendingwall. This is a famous poem, and some of you may have heard it before. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, and leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Chances are, if you haven't studied the whole poem, you've heard somebody, possibly in a speech, quote the last two lines. I took the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Usually when people do that, the comment that they're trying to suggest is that they are people who do things their way. They're rugged individualists. They don't follow in somebody else's footsteps. They've navigated their own path, and they are to be praised. So you might hear a valedictorian give that at a graduation. And the message that I think people are being offered, that they're being tempted to take away, is, well, I speaker am better than you are because I did things my way and didn't just follow the crowd. What I find ironic about that interpretation is that that's the crowd. That's the interpretation that the crowd gives. That is the most common way that people read this poem Frost is a devious poet. There's nothing obvious about him, but he doesn't use complex, thorny language the way some of the other people do we've looked at. And so it's tempting to say, it's obvious. Yeah, he did it his way. That made all the difference. But I want to look at it slowly enough so that we can kind of, I want to ask questions. I don't want to dictate terms here. If this is a poem about major life choices, and the road is symbolic of, like, I don't know if you've ever played the game of life where you start off with just a car and a peg for you. And later on you can get married, so you put another peg in there, and then if you have kids, you put pegs in the back seat, and you go around. You can go to college, you can skip college, and you go throughout life. And it's like these are the steps that you have to take. And there are significant choices. Usually they're associated with a certain time of life. And your lives are at that time right now because you're about to make those kinds of significant decisions, as in the game of life. Do I go to college? Do I not go to college? What kind of career do I want? Do I need to make decisions now? What, as a lot of community colleges like to put it, what path should I be on? Where do I want it to take me? And do I want to get married? Do I want to do it now? Do I want to do it later? Etc. Interesting that the first line of the poem should mention not just the roads diverging, but the yellow wood. Because if major life choices that indicate the significance of going this way or that way occur in the springtime of your life, seasons are symbolic. Times of day are symbolic. Spring is symbolic of being young. Winter's symbolic of being old, about to die. Usually, a poem like this would be situated in springtime because the choices that you think are being discussed are springtime choices. Should I go to college? Should I not go to college? Should I get married? What career should I have? Most people ask those when there's still time to do something to make major changes in the springtime of their lives. That's not the time of year that's being suggested by the first line. I want you to look carefully at the first line of The Road Not Taken. There's a key word that suggests it's not at all a springtime setting. See if you can underline that word and then start to think about how the road here might deviate from common expectations about what this thing means. Because the time of year doesn't fit the time of year you would expect from a poem about major life decisions. The speaker does say that first, before he does anything else, he stares, and it's like, I could go right, I could go left. And that's kind of like thinking I could go to college, I could just go straight out in the workforce, or I could travel for a year. I don't know, there are all these choices. But look what he does. He stared down one as far as he can see, and then it goes in a direction he can't see. It bends in the undergrowth. In stanza 2, we're told that he took the other. It doesn't say he studied the other. It says he studied the first one and then took the other. So we're not told that he studies the second one. He studies the first one. I wonder what is going on with that. And I'm asking, what possibilities are there that he would look down one like he needs to learn everything he can about it. But actually it bends, so he can't learn all of it in advance. You have to kind of go down a path to learn about it. And then he takes the other one. And we're not told that he studied it. What we're told is that this is just as fair. As is kind of like an equal sign. Just is a word that can mean several different things, like righteous, just, or equally. And fair, as we've already encountered with Shakespeare's Sonnet 18, means a lot of different things. It can mean nice, it can mean beautiful, it can mean... There's a long list of possibilities just using fair as a modifier. Have that list in mind. Whatever motivates the speaker, he takes the second path. And he says it's just as fair, whatever fair means. Kind of makes you think that he thinks they're equal. And then he says maybe it has a better claim because it was grassy and wanted. In this context, wanted means lacked. Because it was grassy and lacked where? So he says first they're equal. Second, it's better, the one I took, because it's not all worn down, which would suggest it's not the one that everybody else goes down. So it's still all covered with grass. But then in the very next line, he says, though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. So he's back to their equal. He can't know that the one he's on is grassier or that it's the same because he can't be on both paths. You don't get to do that in life. You can't like split yourself in half and go down two opposite sides of a mountain and meet on the other side and compare notes with yourself. You have to go one way or another. Now you could circle back, but you're not going to be the same person. And give a real specific example of that in just a second. But let me go on with the comparison first, because he says the one I took is better because it's grassier. Now, you know what? They're the same. They're both worn down the same. And anyway, third stanza, they're both all covered in leaves, so I can't tell how high the grass is. Well, one, that seems to be out of order, because if the paths are both covered in leaves, then you can't tell how high the grass is. You don't really know. And you can't know how high the grass is on the path you didn't take. You can know what you saw, but you don't know what it's like beyond where you could see. And it seems like a relevant detail that you would want to mention first. The path that you're on has grass that's covered up with leaves. That goes with yellow. And that makes it impossible to compare them, because the whole thing he's trying to do in stanza 2 is compare them. So it's kind of a take back. I'm comparing them and they're the same. Nope, the one I'm on's better. Nope, they're the same. You know what? I can't tell because they're both covered up with leaves. If you think about that in sequence, it makes absolutely no sense. As a statement of where someone's gone, it makes absolutely no sense. As a statement of where somebody wishes he had gone, it might make a lot of sense. But then you have to give it a psychological reading. You have to give it a kind of, what does he want out of his path? This is a guy who definitely wants to be on the path that is less worn, that fewer people have gone on. The problem is that that's hard to know. If you're looking for external signs of how worn down a path is, you're likely always to be let down, because you can't go down both paths. He says at the end of stanza 3, oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. That's like saying, you know what, I'm going to get married to this person. But if that doesn't work out, I can always get married later to somebody else, except unless you have like serious brain damage in between the two marriages, you will know that you were already married to person A, so that you're not getting married for the first time when you get married to person B later on. So you can't keep the first path for another day and make that the first path that you ever traveled. And it seems like one of the major kind of preconditions to traveling a path that others haven't traveled down is being sure that you make your own fate, so to speak, that you're the one who controls the outcome. If you're doing, let's say you're participating in team sports and you and your team take a bus to the state championship. The other team's bus breaks down and they don't show up, so you win by forfeit. Does that really feel the same way as beating the snot out of the other team in a really good game? Their bus broke down, we won by forfeit. It's kind of like the speaker wants the fates to determine whether he is somebody who made his own way in the world. That's not a question you leave to fate. That's a question that you know the answer to if you're the kind of person who makes your own fate. You don't need to constantly ask yourself whether you're on the right path, because you know the answer is, I'm on the right path because I'm me. And he's not that person. The word for it is rationalization. We used that when we were doing Omelis last semester. He's rationalizing. Yeah, they're the same. No, mine's better. No, they're the same. And anyway, they're covered up. I can't tell. I'll go back. I'll do if this one doesn't work out, I'll take the first one. Except that I really don't know if I can come back, and it won't be the path I took first because it'll be the path I took second. I shall be telling this. And look very carefully at the word this with a sigh. Does this apply to what has come before or to what's going to come after the colon, after the word hence in the last stanza? Because it could go either way. I shall be telling this, what I just said above, which is I went back and forth on which path was better, and I never could make up my mind. Is that what he's telling with the sigh? Or is it what he's telling with the sigh, what comes after the somewhere ages and ages hence? Anyway, ages and ages hence is like when I'm an old man. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. Is there any evidence that he actually believes that in the first three stanzas? That his equivocation, going back and forth, is going in this one's better, no, that one's better. They're the same. Did he learn that he was on the right path after all? Did he ever learn that while he was traveling? I took the one less traveled by. How the heck would he know that if he is on a path that basically amounts to being anxious about whether he's on the right path? That's not exactly the path less traveled by. That's actually the path most people are on. I don't know whether my way's right or not, and I'll never be sure. And then the last line, that has made all the difference. That doesn't say a good difference. So I'm just going to toss out some possibilities. You don't have to buy any of them. One, this is somebody who's lying through his teeth to his grandkids about the life he's led, that he was never sure, but now he can say he was always sure that he did things his way. Two, that he's bitter and is being a little bit sarcastic in the last two lines. All the difference would be said with the sarcastic tone then, because he knows there really wasn't any difference. He would have been just as anxious about things had he taken the other path, because the problem is always that he's not sure whether he's on the right path. That problem wouldn't go away if he were on the other path, because he's still the person who's not sure which path is right for him. That wouldn't change if he took the other path. That wouldn't change if he found a third path. The only way it could change is if he got a brain transplant, and the poem doesn't give him one. It could also be that the poem is kind of a map to its own interpretation, because there's what seems like an easy, obvious path, which is this guy's a rugged individualist. He does things his way, and he's bragging about it in the last stanza. So therefore, the whole poem's got to lead up to that. Whether it does or not is irrelevant. It has to, so it does. I think that's a little simplistic, but if you want to go with that, you can. But another pathway through the poem is, this is really hard, because in life you don't know what possibilities exist in the choices that are not the choices you made. If you go, I don't know, let's just keep it real simple. Texas or Texas A&M. If you go to Texas, you might say, well, what if I'd been an Aggie? You'll never know. You'll have friends who would say it would be great to live in College Station. It's not giant like Austin. It's not. But if you did it the other way around, you might wonder the same thing. You would ask friends, is it better in Austin or is it better here? You'll never know whether it would have been better for you to go to College Station or to go to Austin. You have to go, and all you can know then is your own experience. You can't know what it would be like to do both. A lot of people want to know, want to believe that they can know. In fact, it's kind of hard to know, because you can't split yourself in half and compare notes later. And I think a lot of people wish we could. I think I've said enough just to kind of stimulate some thinking about the complexity here. And I'm actually gonna split this into 3 videos, because I'll upload faster if I don't make a giant file. So I'm gonna stop. That's the discussion of The Road Not Taken.